There are so many terms when it comes to planning your wedding or wedding jargon that just the list goes on and on and on. So we actually have a download for you that has every term we could find in our brains that we could give you in case there's anything you don't understand, but we just wanted to highlight a few of the most important ones right now. There are 3 parts to a wedding. There is first the ceremony, and that's where everyone's gathered together. You walk down the aisle and you say, "I do." Whether there's an officiant, a friend, a judge, whoever overseeing that, that's when you say "I do." Then next comes cocktails traditionally, and this is, we say, your cocktail reception. It can range from 45 minutes to an hour, sometimes as long as an hour and a half, but typically it's about 45 minutes to an hour. This is where people are eating, mingling, drinking, and just saying hi to one another before heading into your reception, which we also call dinner dance. And this is the time where you go, you have a beautiful place at a table, you eat your dinner, and you dance, and you party, you do your speeches. All of those big formalities and toast happen during that dinner dance. And I should add, you can start your wedding day with cocktails, then have your ceremony, then go to your reception dinner dance. But those are the 3 main components that really make up a wedding.
The first part of your day, which Lauren just described, is the ceremony. The processional is when you have everyone walk down the aisle. It's as simple as that. And I know sometimes people are wondering, what is a processional? It's just when people are walking down the aisle. And then when the wedding is over and you say, "I do," however that may happen, with a kiss, with confetti, with sparklers, fireworks, you never know, is the recessional. So the bride and groom always go first and then family to follow. That's the recessional.
Those are some of our ceremony-related terms. Now let's move on to the reception and some of those terms. You're gonna hear us use a lot of these terms throughout the course again and again, so we wanna make sure you understand what we're referencing. The first is, or are, escort cards and place cards. Escort cards are little cards that tell you what table you will be seated at. Table 1, table 2. This can also be done in the form of a large board where everyone's name is printed and next to your name it says table 1, table 2, or this could be handwritten. A place card is actually at your place setting, which is why it's called a place card, and it tells you your place at the table. So it'll be exactly where you're seated, noting where you should be seated. So those are escort and place cards.
And just to note, not everyone does a place card.
Very true.
It's such a nice added touch, especially if you have a small wedding, but it really is an undertaking. It takes a lot of time to get that organized, especially if you have a wedding, I would say of 100 or more, but definitely a nice touch. The next thing we want to address is guarantees and sets. This is especially important, I think, when you're working with hotels. You will hear this term a lot, and they will think you are a pro since you'll know what it means. Yes. So a guarantee is how many people will be coming to your wedding. And I think you always want to take, like if you think 100 people are coming, maybe you tell them 98 people. So in the last few days before the wedding, you might have a couple people drop off, maybe somebody's sick, maybe somebody can't fly in. So that's why we say 98 people. And then the set is actually what we would like the hotel or the staff to set for. So usually it's 3% over your guarantee. That's what they allow per the contract. Let's say you have 100 people and you're allowed to set 3% over. So you'll actually set for 103. You will only be charged for the guarantee. So if only 100 people come, you'll be charged for 100. But if 103 people come, you'll be charged for 103.
I love that they do that because without a doubt, almost always there's 1 or 2 people who don't show up.
And it gives you a little wiggle room because you know that always happens at the end, the last few days.
And whenever you can save on not paying for someone not coming, that's a bonus. The next term we wanted to go over was the sweetheart table and the head table. So a sweetheart table is a table just for the bride and groom. And this is something we see a lot out here in California and on the West Coast. I don't know if it's those West Coast brides and grooms don't want to be bothered by their family or anyone else or what it is, but they like to have a table all to themselves, just the 2 of them. And then there's something called a head table. And the head table can be made up of the bride, groom, family members, the bridegroom and your wedding wedding party. It's really up to you and who you'd like to have at that head table. So that's kind of another term you'll hear when it comes to your reception. Your florist may say, so are you doing a sweetheart table or a head table? And now you know how to answer.
And I love a sweetheart table because it's just the two of you, and then everyone could come up and say hello to you, and you're not fighting for other people's attention. It's just a really nice, warm way of being able to talk to your guests and spending some extra time with your new husband or wife.
Yeah, a couple extra seconds.
So the next thing, which leads me into from the sweetheart table, is you'll have your champagne glasses. So here, if somebody in the room says clink, clink on their champagne glass, do you know what that means? It means it's time for the bride and groom, the newly bride and groom, to have a little kiss.
That is what it means. So if you want to mess with your friends out there, the next wedding you go to, start clinking those glasses. And then there's the first look. We'll talk about this a lot throughout our course. And the first look is actually seeing each other prior to the ceremony. Now, not everybody does this. You might not want to see your future partner before that ceremony and before the processional, since you know what that means now. But you may want to. And this is something we talk about, the benefits of a first look. Your makeup's fresh. It takes the edge off. A lot of times I find couples can be really nervous about walking down the aisle. But when a first look is introduced as an option, they jump on it because they get to have a very intimate moment to see each other before the ceremony, capture some beautiful photos, and I just see the anxiety and the stress melt away because the couple is able to lock eyes on each other and in the middle of this busy, chaotic day, have some time together.
It might be your only time together and alone all day.
Very true.
Now let's take a look at some wedding fees and terms. So the first one is food and beverage minimum. Some people just may say F&B minimum. It's really pretty simple. This will be something that when you're booking your venue, you will hear this term a lot. It's really, is it $10,000 plus tax and service charge? They might just say $10,000 plus. But that is your food and beverage minimum, and what it means is that you need to hit that minimum in order to have your event at that venue.
Which actually makes me remember we should probably break down tax and service charge, which tax is very self-explanatory. Service charge is something you'll see tacked onto your invoices and estimates a lot, and that could be gratuity is included in service charge. It's an admin fee in gratuity. Service charge can actually mean a few different things. So you'll just want to double check with your caterer, your venue, your hotel on what is that service charge percentage and what does it actually mean.
Hosted valet parking and non-hosted valet parking may come up as well. So hosted valet parking, that means that you will pay for all the charges of all the cars that come in. So Lauren drives in, here she comes, and I take care of her parking for her. But if you choose not to host it, then Lauren would take care of her own parking. The venue will typically ask you, would you like to host the parking or not?
The next thing we wanted to discuss is the bar. The bar comes up a lot, and there's different ways it can be talked about. There is a bar package, and this is where you are given an amount of money, let's say $25, to host the bar for all your guests for, let's say, the duration of your event, 6 hours. That is a bar package. Now, again, we come into hosted and non-hosted, just like we did with valet. So a hosted bar or hosted bar package would be you, the host of the event and the wedding, are hosting and paying for all those beverages being served. Whereas a non-hosted bar can also be called a cash bar, which means your guests are the ones paying for each of the drinks they consume. Or maybe it can get a little tricky. There's those partially hosted packages where maybe you host beer, wine, and sodas, and there is a cash bar for any hard alcohol and mixed drinks and cocktails, so your guests are paying for those on their own. So there's a few different ways to break down, so we wanted to give you the terms for that. And then last, there's a consumption bar, which is another bar term because the bar is the central part of your wedding for some of you. The consumption bar means that for every drink consumed, so if Margot here tosses back 5 margaritas, I'm going to have to pay for every one of those. So it is everything consumed, whether it's water, alcohol, non-alcohol beverages, I will be charged on consumption. There is no flat rate. At the end of the night, whatever is spent on drinks, I am paying for.
Here we are talking about the cake again. So the cake cutting fee. If you are bringing your cake in from an outside source to a hotel or to a venue, they typically charge you a cake cutting fee. And this is really simply, they just charge you to cut and serve the cake to all your guests. It's almost a service fee for the staff to cut and serve.
And then there's past hors d'oeuvres. We hear this thrown around a lot, especially during cocktail hour, cocktail reception. Oh, would you like some past hors d'oeuvres? And these are the little bite-sized tidbits of food that are passed around on trays. Typically, we recommend about 5 to 6 or so for an hour reception, but you'll hear this a lot, past hors d'oeuvres. They're just those little yummy bite-sized pieces.
And it only took me 20 years to figure out how to spell hors d'oeuvres, so don't worry if you can't do that right away. It's true.
Very true.
It's true. So the next definition section is for decor. The first one we always get questions about is, what is a charger? What is a charger plate? So a charger plate is when you walk in the room, it's already on the table. It's just a beautiful plate. Sometimes the napkin is on top of it and the menu is on top of it. It's not used for actual food. Food doesn't usually go on top of it, but say they serve the salad, it goes on top of the charger plate, and then usually they serve the entree, it goes on top of the charger plate, and after that, they usually take the charger and the entree away. But it's just a beautiful show plate when you first walk in the room.
Like our beautiful plates behind us. Gobo is another word you're going to hear thrown around a lot, especially when talking to your wedding vendors. A gobo is actually a projection. It's a stencil plate that gets put in front of a light, and then it projects onto your walls, your dance floors to create patterns and logos. So it could be your initials, it could be a floral pattern. So it's really just kind of a lighting projection to add texture and depth to your space.
An overlay is such a nice way to add a little something special to your table. So you have a tablecloth that goes all the way to the ground, and then you might want to bring in another cloth, whether it's a little sparkly or a different color, and that can just be laid on top of the full table just to add a little something extra.
We also wanted to throw in a few hotel-related terms because sometimes those hotel contracts and terms can get a little bit tricky. So the first one is a hotel room block. This is when you have a block of rooms at whether it's your hotel wedding venue or it's at hotels around the city where you're getting married, you work with the hotel to create a room block. So a group of rooms from anywhere from 10 to, well, you could have the whole hotel if you wanted. So 10 rooms or more is considered a room block.
A lot of times when we're doing weddings, we ask for a day use room. This is just a room. No one needs to spend the night in it. We just need, usually it's for the groom so he can get ready during the day. That poor groom only gets a room for the day.
Because he spends the night with his partner.
That's true. So a day use room, that's just a room for the day. And usually they have a specific time you have to be out, but that's okay because by that time you're already off taking your pictures and you can move your suitcase and all your goodies to your suite for the night.
There's also something known as room drops in the industry, which I think now that I say it out loud is a weird sounding term. A room drop. What are you dropping? So these are typically goodie bags that we have a section where we're telling you about wonderful room amenities to send to your guests if a lot of them are coming from out of town and you want to make them feel warm and welcome. These are what room drops are called in hotel contracts or that hotel person you're talking to. So they're the baskets, whether it's a letter, a bag, whatever it is, and you're asking them to be dropped at your guest's room, hence a room drop.
A rooming list is also a hotel term you'll hear all the time. So if you are booking your rooms and you have 10 rooms at a hotel, you want to know who's staying there, you can call your reservations or whoever your contact was and say, can you send me a rooming list? They'll simply email it to you. You can see everybody who's made a reservation with your wedding party.
And then you can yell at the ones who haven't.
That's right. That's really why you use it.
Isn't it? And then one of the last terms we wanted to share with you is an RFP. And you'll see this all over in terms of websites, whether it's a venue, a hotel, a caterer, and it stands for Request for Proposal. So a lot of times they'll say, do you want an RFP? You want to learn more? And they'll have you fill out some information, your name, your wedding date, number of people, sometimes budget, and then they'll send you a proposal as you have just requested for a proposal by submitting that information.
And I know there's so many terms, but we of course have a download with even more than this. But if you learn these, you are going to be an old pro and impress everybody.